This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guest and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
Hey, welcome to Sound Experience, powered by Intertalk Radio, the voice of the music biz. I am Tim Dolbear, your host, coming to you live from Eclectica Studios in beautiful Austin, Texas. Want to give a shout out to our sponsors, some of our other sponsors that you'll hear throughout the show, but in addition to them is FrontEndAudio.com, your ultimate pro audio dealer, the Blackbird Academy, hands-on training for studio and live sound, Great River Electronics, and Source Connect by Source Element, which actually makes this all possible. It makes it so I can sit here in Austin, Texas, and be able to speak back and forth with the station and our guest clearly, which is a wonderful thing. Source Connect really replaced ISDN a few years ago, which is good, was needed. Get into the modern times. So let's look ahead to a couple things we have on the calendar coming up. Coming up next week, we have a really, really cool show. A friend of mine, Mark DeGeorge from SSL, Solid State Logic, will be here for the first half of the show, talking all about the latest going-ons at Solid State Logic, new gear, old gear, interesting things, stuff like that. And then Mike Carnes is on here. He's the founder and designer for Exponential Audio. He makes the reverb plugin that is one of my favorite, which is called the R2. He also makes the Phoenix. Anyway, his products from Exponential Audio, his plugins, are absolutely fantastic. And remember, we don't endorse anybody or give out shout-outs or say, oh, they're wonderful and we use them unless we actually do. I only give support to the ones that I actually believe in, and I really believe in his products. All right, coming up on the 14th, Saturday the 14th, I'll be in Los Angeles at the IMSTA Festa, which is a great conference of a whole bunch of different companies showing off stuff, gear, guest note speakers and such. And as the product specialist for Sequoia and Sample 2 digital audio workstations, I will actually be at IMSTA Festa showing off and teaching all about Sequoia and Sample 2 digital audio workstations and stuff. And it would be great if you're in the area. If you're in Los Angeles, it's a free event, and there's lots of companies there. It's like a mini NAMM show. Come on down and say hi to me. We also have a giveaway coming up over the next month that you'll hear about starting next week on the show, which is we're giving away a free license to Sequoia digital audio workstations. So that's a $3,000 prize. So stay tuned for that because we'll get back on that. The following week on the 18th, I'm actually at the Blackbird Academy teaching in Nashville. So if you're in Nashville, drop me an email and maybe we'll hook up for dinner or something. But always reach out and say hi. And thank you for all the emails and support and all of the shout-outs and all the attention I'm getting through Facebook and everywhere. Really, really appreciate it. Remember, you can send me any questions or comments, concerns, thoughts, criticisms, anything. Send them to tim@timdolbear.com or find me at the intertalkradio.com website when you click on Sound Experience Radio Show. You'll be able to get to me there, as well as you can find my blog, which has all kinds of information on it, too. It goes back a few years, many, many, many posts of interesting subject matter. So this is a really cool show we're going to do today, which is about, they're all really cool, one would hope. But this one, we took a subject that gets so much coverage on the forums, so much strange information about it. So many people do this because they hear other people do it, yet they don't really know why or what it means. You can get 5 working full-time professionals like myself in a room, and we'll all have different opinions on this. And again, these are opinions. These are workflows. These are things that my views are always, this is my experience in the studio, and this is what I believe and hold true to my heart from the experiences that I've gotten. And so when we're talking about this stuff, always try what we're talking about, but also explore and expand and reach out on your own. So today, my guest is Michael Romanowski, who is the owner and operator of Coast Mastering, and he is going to bring a completely different view to this subject than I bring as he's a mastering engineer, and I am a mixing engineer. So we come at this in 2 different kind of ways. We're talking about the mysteries of mix bus compression or adding compression to your stereo mix. So first, let's say hi to Michael. Michael, how you doing?
Hey, Tim. Nice to talk to you again.
Awesome. Yeah, nice talking to you. How have you been?
Thanks for having me be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to kind of set this all up before we dive into 15 or 16 different areas, believe it or not, that I have notes written down on for this. But I want to kind of set it up for some people don't know much about it. Some people know a lot about it. Some people just have questions about it. It's always seemed like kind of a voodoo area using mix bus compression or compression on your stereo mix in mastering. And so let me kind of set this up for everyone, and then we'll just dive into all of this. So when you add compression to your stereo bus or the final 2-track of your mix, there's a couple different things that people talk about. Some call it glue. Some people call adding cohesiveness to a mix. That's kind of what I call it. I also call it solidifying a mix. You can also be adding flavor by doing this. But just adding a light compression in that mix bus while you're mixing, or adding compression during mastering, and we're not talking about limiting. We're not talking about, brick wall limiting where you're just trimming off levels or anything like that. This is the most subtle of subtle compressions, and you're adding it to a mix to just add a feeling to the music and to the sound. And there's 3 different approaches that we'll talk on, mainly 2 of these, but there's 3 approaches. One is you add a compressor to your mix as you're finishing up doing your mix. So you've mixed for an hour or 2, you like the song, everything sounded good, and then you drop a compressor on your master bus of your DAW or your workstation and add a little bit of compression to it. The other way is you mix into the compressor. You add the compressor at the beginning, and then you are mixing while that compression is on, and so it's reacting to what you're doing as you go along, which is the way I subscribe to. The third way is adding compression during the mastering process. So you're done with mix, you have a 2-track stereo wave file, and you're adding it then before you add limiting, but you're also doing EQing and stuff. So it's the mastering process. And so these are the approaches that we're going to talk about today. And really, I guess the very beginning we should start with is what type of compression to use. So let's throw this one to Michael. Michael, what type of compression, can you describe the type of compression that you use in these situations for mastering?
Well, thanks, Tim. Well, you're right. There are several different types of, different, maybe not even necessarily types of compression, more so like you were describing, there are different reasons for it. And I would say that for me, in the mastering world, the type is dependent on the content. How I'm using compression, if I'm using it at all, because I don't always use it. Here's one of those things, at least for me, and I like the way you phrased this earlier, saying that ask 5 different people a certain thing and you'll get 5 different answers. It is. I think that's very true. Our reasons for doing things, the methodology behind why we do what we do, no matter what stage we're at as engineering, is a very, personal and unique to us, to each individual engineer. And to me, the reason why behind doing something is way more important than what you're actually doing. If you,
absolutely,
as long as you're paying attention to, I want to put this on here because of this, then cool. That's a way different thing than saying, I'm going to put this on here because I read on Gear Sluts that somebody does this, and I want my records to sound like theirs. And to me, that's the very wrong reason to do anything.
Right.
You mentioned earlier about the, trying things, playing with stuff. Compressors are tone shapers in a way. Mm-hmm. They're certainly transient shapers or dynamic shapers, and there's a lot of things that you can do with them, and they're extremely easy to overuse throughout the whole process of making a record. Back to your question, though, on how do I use it, again, not every record that I work on needs compression, and
correct.
There are a multitude of reasons for that. Like there's a whole bunch of forks we can take for any one of these answers. There's also in this scenario or in that scenario. And so, for instance, there are a lot of times that I don't necessarily need to add compression to a record because, let's say it's a classical record, and classical you do not want to compress it. The dynamics are part of the composition, and you want to preserve the dynamics as much as possible. So you really don't do that to classical music. Another reason for me as a mastering engineer not to use compression would be that somebody has over-compressed the crap out of it before it came to me. And I don't need to, I really want to keep as much life as possible. And so for me to take more away, that would be wrong. I wouldn't need to necessarily do that. So there's a couple reasons right there why I wouldn't even consider using a compressor. And you did mention a form of compression, the infinity to one, the limiting is another version of that. But really there's I'll jump up on a soapbox real quick and say that I don't really think there's much need for that in a lot of ways also, other than protecting your equipment from, like, for instance, I have a limiter right at the end of, I do all my processing in the analog domain. I like the sound of analog compressors and analog EQs and a console for mastering. So at the end of my analog console, I have a limiter peak limiter, just to make sure that I don't have any overs at my A to D stage. I don't want any A to D errors by having too much level hitting my converters. That's about the only time I use something like that. So I'm not sure if that particularly answers your question about how I use it. I would say that the very first thing, and I think anybody, no matter what you're doing, should do this first. I listen. I listen to the audio. What does it need?
Hold that part of the thought.
And I make the decision after I listen.
Exactly. Hold that part of thought. We'll pick that right back up in a couple minutes right after this break. You're listening to Sound Experience, powered by NRTalk Radio, the voice of the music biz. We'll be right back talking about mix bus compression.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on NRTalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Hey, it's Catherine from Listen Local Radio. Moe's Guitars has proudly served the San Diego music community since 1975. Specializing in guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, and ukuleles, they buy, sell, trade, and consign. If you're looking for lessons, repairs, accessories, and cool gear, you found the right place. Located in downtown La Mesa Village, stop by and check out their digs or visit mozeguitars.com or their Facebook page, mozeguitars.com, 619-698-1185.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to record on a Grammy award-winning album? Have you ever wondered what it's like to play in front of a stadium crowd? Have you ever wondered what it's like to be on a world tour? I'm Jackie Bertoni, and I've played with the who's who in the music industry, and I've toured the world. Come join my world, behind the velvet rope, and get into the groove on Jackie's Groove. Live 2 p.m. Mondays and available 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com.
I have some good news for a change. With the stressful times upon us, having a regular glass of wine has proved in many studies to reduce stress. Want some more stress-relieving tips? VinVillage.com is an exciting new social organization connecting wine lovers around the country with an exclusive local and online wine lifestyle experience. Vin Village members can meet others online and in person, attend wine dinners and tastings, participate in forums, blogs, and wikis, purchase limited and exclusive wines, even create your own wine. You heard me. Create your own wine. And best yet, membership is free. So reduce some of the stress and have some fun. Join now and connect with thousands of other like-minded wine lovers. To learn more, go to vinvillage.com. That's www.vinvillage.com. Vin Village is where wine lovers connect.
This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guest and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
So we were talking about mix bus compression, and I think we should define then in mastering. It sounds like that you use compression in two different types of situation. One, to fix something, and two, to bring forth a feel of a song. Does that sound correct?
Well, in mastering, yeah, I guess I would say that it's maybe not necessarily so much, because there's not a lot you can. I'm choosing my words carefully. Mastering is not about fixing. Mastering should not be about fixing anything. We only have two channels. I mean, I will tell you that there are occasions when people come to me and I'm working on a record and they'll go, "Hey, can you turn the background vocals up a little bit in this one section?" I go, "No, that's mixing. That's not mastering." Fixing the mix, the best case scenario is that the mix is awesome to begin with, and mastering is what we're trying to accomplish is more about the presentation of body of work, not a scattering of a collection of songs in its presentation. We're trying to that's on the artistic side. There's the artistic side and the technical side. And the technical side is all about dealing with manufacture and working with how it's going to be distributed. Is it going to be HD tracks, high-res downloads, vinyl being made, CDs, etc.? So there's a technical side of dealing with getting the proper master made for the distribution. The other side is the artistic and the presentation side of the art form of the song. And mixing, mastering, unless you're doing surround, is two channels. You have a left and right. You can't change the mix in any way. Now, you can adjust the perception of the mix a little bit, and compression would be one of those things that would be one of the tools that we have to be able to adjust the presentation a little bit. Is it a little too wide dynamic range for within a song? You mentioned glue and vibe and feel, and maybe you want to push it a little bit. I've got some compressors that are very clean, and I have some that are tubes and transformers that are very vibey, for lack of a better word. And I even have a tape machine next to me that sometimes I'll just run it to tape to be able to get sort of that sound also. So any one of those would be a choice that I would make depending on the content of what I'm what I'm working on, and the artist's or producer or engineer's intent of where they're trying to take where the song goes. So any choice of what I would do is certainly dependent on our goal state, having a goal state, like I feel like it needs this, or I feel like it needs. We want to hear this out of the music when it's playing back. So the word fix, I shy away from that a bit, because we really can't fix a mix. We hope not to have to try to use our resources to fix problems. I would say that on a fixative side of things, something like that might be more so, EQ, having an EQ on, doing something to it. If, for instance, somebody's mixing their entire record and there are really bright speakers, it'll come to me being very dull. A fix would be being able to take the mix environment out of the equation a little bit on a level to undo some of the decisions that were made tonally because of a monitoring environment. But I don't think that plays into it so much so in a compression world.
Correct.
Does that answer your question? Yeah. Does that make sense? A
little bit. Yeah. I think let's go into a couple things about the settings of compression that you would use in this type of situation. The stuff that I'm doing in a mix, in my early years, I would throw a compressor on, because I'd heard other mixing engineers had put compression in the master bus and such, and nothing ever worked. Everything took away transients, everything took away everything I had been working on. One of the issues was I was adding that to a final mix afterwards and going aggressively at it. And so mix bus compression for me has ended up being something that I've completely fallen in love with, because it complements and allows me to do and achieve exactly what I'm looking for. But the key to it for me was having such a slow attack to it and a release time that goes right along rhythmically with the music, that it actually becomes an extension to my mixing, an extension to my automation, and helps keep things focused and keep a focused element to the mix. For instance, the vocal stops and you want the snare to pop in as your focal point at that point. That stuff starts happening more naturally, where things move into the center and everything else stays in the frame around it. But you get things moving into the center easier with less need for a more aggressive automation and such. Are you with me on that?
Well, yeah. Well, that makes that. Yeah, you know what? And what you're describing is a creative use of dynamic control, and that is awesome. That's great. You're using it because it helps accentuate what's going on with the mix. I'm a bit of a purist, and I think because I still, I got into mastering from recording and mixing records, and I still pick up a handful a year that I do to keep in it, and it's fun. And I like live records. It's probably one of my favorite things is the triumph and tragedy of a live moment, and so I keep my hands in doing that kind of stuff. But one of the things as a purist, though, and I say that because this is what works for me, back to your earlier statement, I don't like to put anything on the master bus. I actually don't think anything should be on the master bus, because I feel like, for instance, in an EQ world, if you feel like I'm going to put an EQ on the master bus because I feel like the guitars need to be a little bit more present, well, work on the guitars. Fix the guitars, Right. Same kind of thing with the dynamics. Is I'd like to hear, I want to hear everything breathe very well. The more open it is when it comes out, the more depth and resolution and things I get. If I want to, as what you're saying, on a creative side of things, I would go a little earlier in the stage of what I'm trying to accomplish that's more specific to necessarily the drums and the snare or the vocals or something like that, rather than go to the mix bus. Again, that's just me, and that's what's comfortable for me on that stage. In the mastering world, though, the compression is just one of the things to be careful of when you're using it like you are, Tim, and you do great work. With the stuff that you're doing, you're really trying to use it in a very musical sense, and I think that's fantastic. When somebody's trying to use compression for loudness reasons, that's where I start to see, the flag turns from green to orange and possibly red, because that is something that can be achieved in the mastering. If somebody's paying attention in the mastering world, to get it to what it needs to be, but you have more options. If the more open it is, the more options you have to get it to that for a purely loudness standpoint, which I don't necessarily agree with loudness for loudness' sake either. But I also realize that that's a commercial necessity these days that we're thankfully backing away from, and understanding that longevity of listening, fatigue of the listeners, and a limited dynamic range causes people's attention span to be a little bit shorter, and therefore they tune out sooner. And what we really want is people to listen to what we're working on, our creations, our art form, to listen to it more rather than less.
Absolutely.
So when we pull that back a little bit, we find that people actually do listen to things more because they're less subconsciously fatigued by it, the lack of limited dynamic range. And so, that's where these choices have to, when we put these on, whether in mastering or mixing, these choices have to be something that is serves the art form, the artistic nature of why. Back to the question of, why do we put these things on it? What are you hoping to accomplish? What is your goal? What do you put a compressor on it? Why do you do that? Is it enhancing what's going on? Is it creative, like you're using it for? That's it's the intent. What are we trying to accomplish? So.
Absolutely, and also for people who do not necessarily have dived into the world of any type of mixed bus compression, I'm actually using a Manley Very mastering edition with high pass filter and everything, and the T-bar mod, and I'm feeding it from a Great River EQ, which is just mostly using the transformers to add that kind of vibe. And we'll get into that stuff here in a minute. But when I'm hitting compression, the most amount of compression you'll ever see is it might almost touch 2 dB of reduction, and we're talking 60 milliseconds of attack time. But most of the time, the needles barely twitch around 1 dB of reduction. So it's really a light type of compression that really is a feel. it helps the feeling of the song, and it makes you to me, it makes it feel good. It solidifies it. Everything just suddenly sounds like a record, like I grew up listening to. Everything just has that tone to it. When I bypass the Very Mew, for instance, everything just kind of sits down a little bit. And when I flip it back on, everything just goes, very nicely, just kind of not necessarily come up in volume, but it all of a sudden it makes your face go from a straight lip look to a smile. It just has that niceness to it. And the problem I had always run into with compressors before was always the aggressiveness. SSL compressors, for instance, I've always had problems, and I've only used the plug-in mix bus compressor that they make. I've only used plug-in versions of it from UAD and from SSL Duende. But having a 30 millisecond attack time, I think is the longest it has, right? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
It just always, it seemed like it was too attacky, and it also did not have a high-pass filter on it, which meant that it was grabbing everything and pumping and moving and just not doing what I want it to do. So we're about to go into a commercial break again. When we come back, let's talk about certain things in there to make your compression not sound like herky-jerky and make it sound artistically full, wonderful, give you a smile on the face. Things like side chaining and stereo linking and everything like that. So we'll be back in a couple minutes and we'll dive into that part of it. So come back in a couple minutes. This is Sound Experience, powered by Talk Radio, the voice of the music biz. I'm Tim Dolbear. We'll be right back in a couple minutes.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to record on a Grammy award-winning album? Have you ever wondered what it's like to play in front of a stadium crowd? Have you ever wondered what it's like to be on a world tour? I'm Jackie Bertoni, and I've played with the who's who in the music industry, and I've toured the world. Come join my world, behind the velvet rope, and get into the groove on Jackie's Groove. Live 2 p.m. Mondays and available 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com.
Hey, it's Catherine from Listen Local Radio. Moe's Guitars has proudly served the San Diego music community since 1975. Specializing in guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, and ukuleles, they buy, sell, trade, and consign. If you're looking for lessons, repairs, accessories, and cool gear, you found the right place. Located in downtown La Mesa Village, stop by and check out their digs or visit moesguitars.com or their Facebook page. mozeguitars.com, 619-698-1185.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
I have some good news for a change. With the stressful times upon us, having a regular glass of wine has proved in many studies to reduce stress. Want some more stress-relieving tips? VinVillage.com is an exciting new social organization connecting wine lovers around the country with an exclusive local and online wine lifestyle experience. Vin Village members can meet others online and in person, attend wine dinners and tastings, participate in forums, blogs, and wikis, purchase limited and exclusive wines, even create your own wine. You heard me. Create your own wine. And best yet, membership is free. So reduce some of the stress and have some fun. Join now and connect with thousands of other like-minded wine lovers. To learn more, go to vinvillage.com. That's www.vinvillage.com. Vin Village is where wine lovers connect.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guest and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
Hey, welcome back to Sound Experience. Big shout out to our sponsors also, Front End Audio, your ultimate pro audio dealer, Blackbird Academy for hands-on training for studio and live sound, Great River Electronics, and Source Connect by Source Element, which allows me to connect into the station from my comfy seat here in the studio in Austin, Texas. So today we're talking about mixed bus compression, and we are talking with Michael Romanowski, who is the owner and operator of Coast Mastering. And if you know that name, if you've heard of that name or it sounds familiar, that's probably because he's been on the cover of Mix Magazine, and he is everywhere. And if you don't know about him, please look him up. Please check him out. It's just, we have the top of the top on the show today, which is really, really cool. And just a great guy, too. So, Michael, when we left off, we were about to jump into high-pass filters, stereo linking, various things like that. And so we'll assume that you're in a situation where you want to give that little bit of a humph to the sound. And I had mentioned using an SSL compressor, which so many people mix into an SSL compressor. And the thing that I didn't necessarily like about it, which I love about the Manley, is that I have a high-pass filter on the side chain, which is the detection chain, which is what triggers the actual compression to happen. And not having a high-pass filter on there means that full frequencies get through, so every time the kick drum hits, it grabs onto your compressor and triggers it and, of course, pulls your volume down. And that is not something that I'm looking for in my mixed bus compression, but other people love having it. So any thoughts on that you want to expand on, Mike?
Well, yeah, it's, exactly that. It's, there are flavors and sounds, and each compressors have their own tonality and behavior characteristics. The Manley is fantastic. I'm a big fan of Ivana and everything that she does. Mm-hmm. Her gear is great. It's very flexible. It has a great amount of variance that you can dial in. Having a high pass filter, I think, is extremely important to me because energy, music is energy. Frequencies are energy. Low frequencies take more energy to reproduce the same perceived volume than high frequencies. So a compressor that has no high pass filter on it, for instance, is just looking at, or even a side chain in any kind of way. Not necessarily high pass. I can tell you, I've got another one here in front of me that has some different side chain characteristics. I'll tell you about that here in a second if you want. But having that ability to be able to get in and not let the very big energy from a low frequency, for instance, a kick drum or a bass or something that's going on a low part of an organ or something like that, to trigger the compressor into a usage state that you don't necessarily want. It can be tricky to try to get a smooth, that little bit of glue or pull it together, like you're talking about. Even just pulling it forward, like you were talking about, hitting it with maybe a dB, maybe two at most of reduction, can be something that really just sort of adds that vibe and pulls a band together, pulls the instruments to sound more like a band than a collection of instruments being all played at the same time separately. It makes it sort of this group cohesion thing. So, yeah, you can definitely dial that in a bit. But if you're stuck with low frequencies that are causing it to pump, unless you're doing French dance music or something like that has, they're really intentionally trying to make it, push and pull a lot. And that's a style and that's a vibe, and, more power to them. But you don't necessarily want that with your rock record or your jazz record or your blues record or whatever it happens to be. So having that flexibility to pull that out just a little bit and let the detector, so to be clear with how it's behaving is that it's the frequencies that are sent to the compression detector, not the overall compression. You're still behaving the same way. The compressor is still doing what it does to the overall frequency spectrum. By the way, completely different than multi-band compression. It's more so it's just looking at what gets sent to the detector to how it's going to behave. And I think another very key important features that to have, and you brought this up, a variable attack and release times really can help you dial in sounds that are, again, appropriate. You want to be careful not to use the preset mentality. At least my view of things is, a lot of times I've seen people go, well, rock record number 6, I'll just put this compressor on it, that's the preset. But you have to really listen to what you're doing and that might be a great place to start, but you have to listen to what you're doing, and you have to be able to have the capabilities, I feel, to be able to adjust the attack and release and sustain any of the stuff that's happening and the side chaining based on the song and the need of each individual song.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It has to be set by feel. The release is set by how the compressor relates and moves to the tempo of the song. That's the way I feel about
Correct.
it. The attack is set so that you're not smashing your drums out. The drums come through with their natural attack, and they're not affecting anything. So the attack is that. The release is set by tempo as far as how it lets go of the compression. And once you get a grasp on that, it just sings. It's like another instrument to the entire band, in my opinion. So what about stereo linking the two channels, the left and the right?
Well, again, that's program dependent. Sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't. It depends on the spread, the tan of the instruments. I mean, a lot of times, I will on any given project, I'll try linking and I'll try not linking and just see what happens. Or I have a couple of compressors that I use that have some variable linking features in it, a little bit more, a whole lot, completely linked, not linked at all. Yeah.
Interesting.
The NIF, KNIF is one that I use a lot. The NIF very new has that ability to be able to analyze. It takes a quick snapshot. It's an analog piece of gear. It's looking at the voltage that's coming in, right? Right. We're so used to that mentality. It's looking at the voltage that's coming in compared to with the attack and release settings of the sides and comparing them to each other and seeing where there are differences. And when they're really close, it may not link so much. When they're very far, it may link just a little bit more. You've got some variable settings in there to be able to adapt to the program material. And I think actually that's a extremely key feature because, if you link too much, if it's a dead link and something hits off on one side, you can really shift the stereo image for a very short or long duration, something undesirable for the image where the center image is. If somebody's doing something where there's a lot of low frequency off on one side, it can be a problem with cutting. With if you're making lacquers for vinyl, you're cutting a lacquer and you've got a little extreme energy off on one side, and a compressor kicks in and it's linked. You can suck down the left-right. You can change the imaging. You can screw the cutting head. You can do a whole lot of damage with something like that. If it's something that's pretty straightforward and like a lot of people do, put the kick drum and the bass and the vocals and the dead center, things like that. Those low-frequency anchor-type sounds, you can get away with a little bit more linking because those things aren't going to pull the imaging left and right, shift it sideways so much. But if you have like maybe big drums or something that really hits on one side and it's not so on the other, even if it's a mid-range or a high-frequency thing, you have to be very careful about how much linking can cause some shifting of the image. When you're listening on speakers, that's one thing. How many people really sit and listen to music sitting in a center channel or center seat and listening to their records? I'm raising my hand here because I'm a big geek. I listen to records for work all day long, and then I go home and I actually have a spot. I sit on the couch and I've got a couple of spots and the speakers I'll pull on. I'll listen to a record for musical enjoyment, not necessarily diagnostic, but I sit in that spot. If you're not in that spot and you're wandering around the house, you're not going to hear some of these subtle shifts. But if you've got headphones on, like a lot of people do, you're going to notice this little push-pull to the sides.
Right.
And so definitely something to be paying attention to.
Now, for people who are new to this, let me explain what stereo linking is also real quickly. Stereo linking means that the detector, the thing triggering the compressor on the left side and the right side, when you link them, they are joining their information together, and the compression amount is being calculated from the sum of those two. And so that way, if a big hit happens on the right side, the right and the left compressors are triggered and brought down equally, which can shift you kind of weirdly around. If you don't have them linked and a big thing hits on one side, it's only going to compress on that one side. The other side's going to stay the same, which also could sound strange. So choosing per song is really important on that.
Yes.
Yeah. And I found in the majority of the work that I get hired to do for mixing, it doesn't really make a huge amount of difference unless there's a section of the song where all of a sudden something kicks in where it's stronger on one side or another. It could make a big role, a big difference, or it could not really do anything. So I'm constantly flipping the switch back and forth, and I'm very glad that there is a choice. Having a variable one would be wonderful. So we'll have to put that on the list. If Ivana Manley's listening, she needs to create a dial now. That'd be really cool.
I'll give her a call.
Please. I'm a huge Manley fan, and they don't pay me to say that whatsoever. I'm actually, the mic I use is plugged into a Force right now, a Manley Force preamp. So I'm a big fan of theirs.
Well, I like what you said earlier. This is off topic, I'm sure, but I like what you said earlier about the things that we talk about are because we use them, and I think that's really important. The tools that we use are our choices. It's not just saying, hey, this is great, somebody told me this is cool, you got to use this cable or this speaker or this whatever it is. It's like, you know what, my job relies on quality components and tools and pieces and parts, and I'm better at my job if the things do what I want them to do, and we choose these things for a reason. Yeah,
absolutely. And try everything, because you got to find the ones that fit your workflow and the ear that you have and your personal taste. Don't go of what's trendy, ever. Never go of what's trendy. Okay, great.
Never
We're at
use
the end of this segment.
Just because somebody else says this is, it's just like compression.
Exactly.
It kind of pulls it back to that. Just because someone says, I did this, doesn't mean that's what you should necessarily be doing for anything. And
just like
compression on a
presets.
master bus is totally that.
Exactly, just like presets on a plugin. Okay, we'll be back in a couple minutes. With more sound experience. Be right back.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to record on a Grammy award-winning album? Have you ever wondered what it's like to play in front of a stadium crowd? Have you ever wondered what it's like to be on a world tour? I'm Jackie Bertoni, and I've played with the who's who in the music industry, and I've toured the world. Come join my world, behind the velvet rope, and get into the groove on Jackie's Groove. Live 2 p.m. Mondays and available 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hey, it's Catherine from Listen Local Radio. Moe's Guitars has proudly served the San Diego music community since 1975. Specializing in guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, and ukuleles, they buy, sell, trade, and consign. If you're looking for lessons, repairs, accessories, and cool gear, you found the right place. Located in downtown La Mesa Village, stop by and check out their digs or visit moesguitars.com or their Facebook page, mozeguitars.com, 619-698-1185.
I have some good news for a change. With the stressful times upon us, having a regular glass of wine has proved in many studies to reduce stress. Want some more stress-relieving tips? VinVillage.com is an exciting new social organization connecting wine lovers around the country with an exclusive local and online wine lifestyle experience. VinVillage members can meet others online and in person, attend wine dinners and tastings, participate in forums, blogs, and wikis, purchase limited and exclusive wines, even create your own wine. You heard me. Create your own wine. And best yet, membership is free. So reduce some of the stress and have some fun. Join now and connect with thousands of other like-minded wine lovers. To learn more, go to vinvillage.com. That's www.vinvillage.com. VinVillage is where wine lovers connect.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guest and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
Hey, welcome back to Sound Experience. We're talking about mix bus compression, and we're going to go a little bit sideways from that and talk about, if we may, talk about other things that add a cohesiveness or a flavor to the mix. And so the first one I want to jump on was one that you had mentioned a few minutes ago, a couple segments back, about instead of using a compressor, sometimes you send it to tape and do a loop through on a tape to get that kind of sound or vibe. Can you describe a little bit more of your process there and the sound that it imparts?
Well, yes, that's an occasional thing. You talked about the records that you grew up listening to, or that we all grew up listening to, and they had a sound and a vibe to them. And we do some things to them, like putting compression on the backside of, on the backside of the mix or the front side of the mastering, or somewhere in the chain there. But a lot of that, the sounds that we dig were the ones that were, they were run to tape, and that imparts a certain sound depending on how hard you hit it, the nature of the machine and the electronics, of course, the type of tape, the calibration that you're using, the width of the track, the speed of the tape. There are a lot of different factors in there that give it some variable flavor depending on what you want to do with it and what you're trying to accomplish. So again, that's one of those things that we, sometimes that's what a client is looking for. Their record, they're looking for that sound because it's reminiscent of something they're particularly fond of. I will say that I try it on occasion. I use it, when somebody client will call up and say, hey, that I'd like to do this, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I will say that it's like anything. You can't say that, I always do this because that's my sound or that's my thing. It should be more so because this is what's appropriate for this project. I've had this happen a number of times, and this just happened last week. I was doing a record, and client wanted to go to tape with it, and we listened back and forth and realized that the reason he wanted to go to tape, I've my outboard gear, like I said, tubes and transformers and stuff like that. I can get that push without adding the noise floor that happens with adding tape, or the limited dynamic range. Like, let's keep the dynamic range but get the flavor. So there are other ways around that. It's a tool, and just choosing the right tool for the job is the art form.
And
so
the next two things
sometimes it's something else. Yeah.
Yeah, the next two things on my list were talking about transformers adding that sound and talking about tubes that add that sound. So you hit right into it. So do you want to give kind of a brief description of when you shoot it through a transformer or different various products that have transformer tones, or when you shoot it through tubes, the type of things that happen to the sound?
Well, they both have a different characteristic, and they both have the ability to push them in different ways if you want to get more of that sound. Like I said, I choose analog equipment for me because I like the sound of electrons flowing through things that do stuff. Like for instance, the heat, the resistance, the distortion, the harmonic distortion that happens in different capacities. And both of those elements have different types of distortion characteristics and different types of ways that the electrons flowing through the pieces, it imparts a flavor and a characteristic. I mean, you look at tubes, for instance. I mean, just a place to start. Triode or pentode, or what's the headroom like? How far can you push it? Is it something that's meant to have a little bit of voltage that goes to it, and as it's reacting, are you limiting the headroom? Does it have a high amount of headroom, and you're just creating this? You're just adding an order of distortion above it because it's a particular type of tube. So, each of the pieces of gear that I use, they're dialed in with their characteristics that give it that flavor or not. I talked about just a moment ago. We talked about the NIF compressor that I'm using. Now it's a tube compressor, but because of the nature of it and transformers in it, because of the nature of it, it's not adding a lot of color. It's actually really clean. It's one of the cleaner pieces I have. it just has a different feel to it because of how the circuitry has been designed. So, it's like one of those things. It's just because it's analog doesn't make it great. Just because it's tape doesn't mean that that's the sound going to tape. Just because it's digital doesn't mean it's clear and good. It's how you utilize those things. And any tool in the hands of somebody who doesn't know what they're doing with the tool is not necessarily going to get the best characteristics out of it. I've heard awful digital and great analog, and I've heard crappy analog and awesome digital. I'm a fan of both for different reasons and in different uses. And the same thing with tubes and transformers. The distortion characteristics and the harmonic nature of what's going on, the limiting factors that they have are both different. And again, choice, intentional choices.
Correct. And it depends on the song and material. And overall blanket statements, I've had someone tell me, you need to run this. Since you have it, try running this and getting the transformer sound out of this piece of gear because you'll love it. You won't believe what it does to a mix. And I ran through it. And I'm like, it rolls off everything from 2K up, just gently rolls off and sounds like nothing, just mud, and killed my song and the mix. And so, it's just if I had the right song going through it, I imagine it would have been the right thing because I believe him that it was good. But it totally depends on what source material was.
What if you had something like that on something that was just horribly brittle and bright, and and all of a sudden you run through that, and it just eases it back very nicely. It's kind of like one of those things like people covet old microphones, like a U47 or something like that, and they go, gotta have this because that's that vocal sound, that's that thing. But to me, those characteristics are horribly bright. We've gotten into this thing with microphones. So this is totally off, sort of sideways, but somewhat related.
Okay.
So bear with me a second, Tim. They have the 5K presence peak going on, but you know what? Those 5K presence peaks were on those classic microphones because they were run through consoles and tape machines that didn't have that. And by the time you bounced files back and forth, by the time you bounced tape tracks back and forth, you ended up losing a lot of that. So they started building that in. You had to have that on because you knew what you were going to lose by the medium that you were capturing to. But now we have a very clean, very open, very resolute digital, and we're using these things we're using these very presence peak microphones because we thought all our favorite records had those, but we're not paying attention to the resultant of them. We're thinking about, so and so Sinatra sang into this microphone, so I have to do that. But there was also a tape machine, and it was also a console, and it was also direct recording without being mixed, live to 2-track or whatever was happening at the time. We pick and choose those things, but transformers and tubes and all of that other stuff has to be for the same reason. We have to know why we're doing it.
Right.
So,
absolutely. There was a story. I have no idea if it's true or not. I believe it's true, but I'm going to throw that part out there before I tell it. So if I'm wrong and you have better info than me, email me on this one. But the original Studio Master Soundmaster PA system from Shure, whatever it was called, had no mid-range whatsoever, so they built an SM58, which would have extra mid-range to it to counter-react the system that they were selling. And ever since, people have been using SM58s because of the all mid-tone to it to counter-react the PA system that they had done wrong. So there's something to think about. But, okay, we're down to 30 seconds left. I want to take this time. The
other thing you could use them for is pounding nails.
Absolutely. That's the thing is you can pound a nail into a stage, and it still works when you're done. So, okay, Thank you so very much for being on the show today. I really, really appreciate you giving us insight on your side of working in mix bus and using compression and stuff. Can't believe the time's over already. It just zipped by again. But thank you very, very much. And
Tim, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I always love talking to you, and I'm really honored and pleasure to be on the show. Thank you so much.
Cool. I look forward to next time. Okay, well, this has been Sound Experience with Tim Dolbear, signing off from Eclectica Studios in Austin, Texas. Please remember, you can go to timdolbear.com and find my blog through there. You can also go to entertalkradio.com and find the show, listen to past shows, check out the archive. There's a lot of great shows already adding up on that website, which has been really cool. Now, go make some music. Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Entertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to record on a Grammy award-winning album? Have you ever wondered what it's like to play in front of a stadium crowd? Have you ever wondered what it's like to be on a world tour? I'm Jackie Bertoni, and I've played with the who's who in the music industry, and I've toured the world. Come join my world, behind the velvet rope, and get into the groove on Jackie's Groove. Live 2 p.m. Mondays and available 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com.
Hey, it's Catherine from Listen Local Radio. Moe's Guitars has proudly served the San Diego music community since 1975. Specializing in guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, and ukuleles, they buy, sell, trade, and consign. If you're looking for lessons, repairs, accessories, and cool gear, you found the right place. Located in downtown La Mesa Village, stop by and check out their digs or visit moesguitars.com or their Facebook page. mozeguitars.com, 619-698-1185.
I have some good news for a change. With the stressful times upon us, having a regular glass of wine has proved in many studies to reduce stress. Want some more stress-relieving tips? VinVillage.com is an exciting new social organization connecting wine lovers around the country with an exclusive local and online wine lifestyle experience. Vin Village members can meet others online and in person, attend wine dinners and tastings, participate in forums, blogs, and wikis, purchase limited and exclusive wines, even create your own wine. You heard me. Create your own wine. And best yet, membership is free. So reduce some of the stress and have some fun. Join now and connect with thousands of other like-minded wine lovers. To learn more, go to vinvillage.com. That's www.vinvillage.com. Vin Village is where wine lovers connect.